Hello and welcome back to Will I Vike It? I'm at the Gourmet Goat Farm today, which is in Avebury, or next to Avebury. And my guest today is Laura. Do you know, I don't know your last name.
Corbett, yeah.
Oh, there we go. Corbett. And she is owner and farmer from the Gourmet Goat Farm.
Correct.
So how did you get started with goat farming?
It was a bit of an itch I needed to scratch, and like all farmers, you have to evolve with time and evolve with each generation. Yeah. And we had previously been cow dairy farmers, and we said goodbye to the dairy herd, and we had on the farm we've got some amazing grassland. Yeah. From sweeping from the Ridgeway down to Avebury. That's
a beautiful sight. And she took me on a little tour before we started.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
It is stunning. And this grass needs to be eaten. It needs to be managed for conservation reasons, and that means we need mouths. Yeah. And I just didn't want to be another sheep farmer. Yeah. I do like to do things a bit differently. And yeah, so the goats came about. Yeah.
So why goats?
Why goats?
Why goats? Yeah. What attracted you to that?
I think it's because as a nation, we don't know a great deal about the goats. We don't, and I basically channeled into the fact of goat meat and how highly nutritious it is, in particular from a protein perspective, and how lean it is. It's as lean as chicken, which is astonishing. Yeah. With all the red meat properties. Yeah. And I was like, wow, this is kind of quite a superpower. And that it just kind of channeled from there, and I've just been on this lovely journey and continual journey of learning all about this animal and what it can offer.
It's a rather underrated meat, isn't it? You don't really hear that many people that eat it.
No, not in the UK. No, no. And any other nation, you only have to go over to France, Spain, Italy, and they eat far more of it than we do.
What do you think the reason is for that?
It's the reason, I've got no doubt, is all about basically our success as British farmers in farming the sheep. Right. And we went on to, because of the wool trade, and the British went and built cities and then empires around the world on the back of the wool trade. Yeah. So why have a goat when you can have a sheep and produce wool? And basically the goat became a peasantry animal in the UK. Okay. Simple as that.
Yeah. With your goats, I know you're quite big on sort of nose to tail and things like that. And I know there are a lot of other things you can do with goats that are away from your meat products, right?
Yeah. So like all animals, there's dairy as well. So we've got the meat and we've got dairy, and of course there's fibre as well. And the Gourmet Goat Farmer is basically a celebration of all things goat, because they can deliver us so much. They have been used in history.
Yes, I think Otzi the Iceman was wearing goat, if I remember rightly.
Yeah. Interestingly, there's at Avebury, the only skeleton of animal in the museum is of a goat.
Is it?
Yeah. So they were second domesticated animal after the dog. Okay. Which means that, they were living with man so early. So early. And so the Gourmet Goat Farmer is a celebration of everything goat, whether it be the fibre from the hides to the mohair, the cashmere, and that's all used in clothing, to brushes, to clothing, to belts, to bags, the leather.
Yeah, I've got my leather belt on today.
You got your leather belt on. Yeah. Fantastic. I've got my gilet on, which is both, so that's nice. Very cozy. Yeah. And even gloves. There's actually makeup brushes and all sorts of things. There's more everyday items that we use that actually you don't appreciate are from goats.
Yeah, I wouldn't have considered that actually.
Yeah, makeup brushes, very much so. And yeah, so the fibre is really fascinating, and it's historical value as well. And the dairy, we're very fortunate in the UK and in Britain in particular, in the southwest even, that there are some fantastic dairy artisan goat producers, and producing some fabulous cheeses out there, from soft to hard.
Yeah.
And then the meat, of which we do here ourselves, and the different cuts that there are, the different. I love learning the journey of different ways to cook goat meat, and the different nationalities that come to the farm who are. This is a hallelujah moment, because they eat goat at home and they're like, oh, I haven't been able to get goat, and they're like, oh, they're bringing all their mothers and grandmothers' dishes to the table at last.
Yeah.
Which is nice. And also there's all the nutritional benefits of goat produce as well. So the milk, and consequently the cheese, so the dairy side, although it has got lactose in it, it's that much easier to digest than cow's milk.
Okay.
I'll have to tell you all about that another day. But yeah, it's so much more digestible.
Yeah.
And it's lovely having people come here, because they're struggling with dairy and they're like, oh, but I can drink goat's milk. And they're like, well, I can eat goat's cheese for that reason. And that's such a hallelujah moment for them as well. So for us, that's why we're doing it, because we enjoy people just being taken back to their roots, being able to eat nutritious food with great nutritional content, that's been reared lovingly, that's been raised lovingly, and from the conservation perspective as well, all the better.
Yeah, because I think, is it your dad is involved with the Wiltshire Downs, or is it the Marlborough Downs?
Yeah, the Marlborough Downs, Space for Nature. So yeah, my father and I are heavily involved with that. So that's basically lands, managing conservation on a landscape scale.
Yeah. So
from like a bird's eye view. So
it's more to do with connecting farms, is it, and working with the farms in the area?
Correct. Yeah. So as I think we're about 42 farmers and smallholders, so all working as one for conservation for the birds, who are crossing farm boundaries all the time.
Yeah.
Foraging cross farm boundaries, and basically making a necklace of dew ponds, which is that's the water that's held on the downs. So the downs is actually a very arid, very dry place. There's no running streams or anything on the downland because its elevation is so high.
Yeah.
And nature cannot be supported without water. And so these ancient dew ponds that were man-made, we know a little bit about their history, but certainly when, as we were referring to sheep, the shepherds were shepherding on the Marlborough Downs. They built these dew ponds, and they were clay lined, and they would hold the dew, they would hold the water, and they were drinking holes for the sheep. But as the wool trade vanished, cattle moved in, there was less management of the landscape. The clay lining of these dew ponds was eroded, if you like, and the water was lost.
Yeah.
But what people forgot was that was actually supporting a massive loss of other nature. The birds, the insects, the dragonflies, and the whole food chain as to what other species that was supporting too. So that's one of the successes of the Marlborough Downs, as well as all sorts of things from tree sparrows, which is another one. So a lot of red list birds. And the list goes on. So the Marlborough Down Space for Nature is an amazing project, and it's really nice to be involved with it and using our livestock, using the goats and experimenting with again managing those hedgerows and managing those grasslands, managing those species, so that there's different different things going on,
Make it more diverse.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because obviously you sort of think of farmers and things about, the animals and the dairy and the meat, but you don't really think about it from the nature side of things, and actually how much is going on sort of behind the scenes, just to kind of manage the land and keep it healthy.
Entirely. And we get a lot of reward. We are so fortunate that, I hear owls every night. I see the best days, the best parts of the day, twilight, and the bird song is amazing. I take it all for granted. Even the spider webs right now are just fabulous. And we've got to look. I'm only here looking after this parcel of land, which we happen to call a farm. For my generation, I'm stewarding it for the next generation, as my forefathers stewarded it for me.
So how far back does that go, just out of interest?
I'm actually in the third generation. So my grandfather was the first of our family here. Okay. But yes, the nature is so important because they give back to us. Everything's cyclical.
Yeah.
And the cow or the goat or whatever, the sheep has to eat the grass. They digest it, and then they excrete then the worms and the beetles, and that supports all of that. It erodes, it feeds the soil feeds the grass, and it just goes round and round and round. It's very humbling.
We should probably move on and talk a little bit about how I got to know you, and that's actually through my Viking age reenactment and struggling to find a source for goat meat to make pinnekjot, which my Norwegian friends will have to forgive my pronunciation because I always get it wrong. And I couldn't find anywhere that sold it, and I spoke to a local butcher and they suggested speaking to you back in the dark days of lockdowns and things. And so I came to you, and I've been coming back ever since, I think, to buy different products, cheeses and your burgers and sausages and other things. But it's all started with pinnekjot, so I brought some along today if you want to try some.
Absolutely. I've been waiting for this moment. I'm very excited about it.
And it's from one of your goats, because if you remember from the open day we did earlier this year, you were kind enough to supply me with a goat to demonstrate butchery and a little bit about nose to tail eating, some of the other uses for the bones. So pinnekjot
uses the breast meat, doesn't it?
It uses the
which is the belly.
Yes.
And interesting, it's that's today a very underused cut. So
I've actually bought two versions.
Okay.
And one I made from a deer, because often there's not a lot of meat on deer ribs.
No.
And they do get discarded most of the time because it's not worth the time to process them.
No.
But I did have a rather fatty deer in October, and I thought I'd try it. And there's not a lot of meat on them, but we can see what we think and how it compares to the goat one. But I'll explain what the pinnekjot is to everyone when we get started.
Lovely.
So I've got your pinnekjot, which I made this afternoon, so it's probably a little bit cold now.
Okay.
For those that don't know, it's, as we've already said, it's the goat breast.
Mm-hmm.
And all I do is cover it with a layer of salt all over, all in the ends, get it in the bones, and it's just left to dry. And it's a very old technique. In Norway, they still eat it today, but they actually use it, it's Christmas dinner.
Oh, it's that special?
Yeah. And you can buy it in the supermarkets, which is something we can't do here.
No.
So what I do is rub it with the salt and leave it to dry out. And then I think the longest we've waited is about 2 years before we've eaten it.
Wow.
So it really stores it well, as long as you keep it dry. And so when cooking day comes, you separate out your ribs.
Yep.
And you soak them. Generally it's overnight, but it seems to be the longer the better. So actually these have been soaking for probably about 30 hours.
Okay.
And from what my wife has told me, they're the best I've ever made.
Okay.
I haven't tried them yet because I saved it for today. But yeah, so they're rehydrated in water and then they're steamed.
Okay.
You can use a modern day steamer.
Yeah.
Traditionally, it's birch sticks. So you make a lattice in a pot of birch sticks and put them on top. And they steam for sort of 3-4 hours till they're falling off the bone. And I just like to finish them off on the grill or barbecue just to crisp them up a little bit.
So would they have been a snack or a main meal or what?
As I said, I mean, so from the history perspective, in Scandinavia, they're eating them for their Christmas dinner, and I'm not sure how that ties in and why it's Christmas dinner.
Okay.
But as far as I think it's just with a lot of what we do, we don't have many recipes from the time.
No.
So we pull together lots of little ideas.
Yeah.
And we have to experiment a bit with techniques. And so for this, it's more about the preservation than anything.
Yeah.
You know, as I say, you can dry it out and it'll keep for, however many years you use.
Yeah. Right, can I dig in?
Go for it. Yeah. Okay. And we have got the rather skinny looking deer ribs as well, which I don't know how well that's coming out on camera, but you compare the meat on that to that. So yeah, so this is one of your goats from back in the summer. Nice bit of crisp to that.
It's very rawish. It's
goat bacon.
It's not as it's like goat bacon.
Which it would be the same cut as a pig, right? If it's the breast, it must be.
Yes, it would, exactly.
It's the bacon cut, but of goat. I think more commonly as well in Norway, it's normally lamb.
Okay.
But I've always done it with goat.
There are a lot of goats in Norway. So. Could well be.
So to link in with goats and to bring it onto a more Viking thing, I did promise that I'd tell you a couple of examples from some of the Norse sagas.
Please do.
One of them is about eating. And I'm going to butcher the story, which is something I do a lot. But Thor's been travelling.
I feel like we need a log fire now.
I'll add some in post, just crackle.
Yes, please.
Yes. So Thor's been travelling and he's very tired and he turns up to a house. And in exchange for being able to stay there, he offers to... So I should probably preempt this because I forget you don't know your Norse mythology quite as well. So Thor has a chariot pulled with goats. So he offers in exchange for being able to sleep.
Yeah.
I'll butcher my goats and we'll eat them for dinner.
Oh, okay.
Quite a generous offer, except that Thor knows that with the use of his hammer Mjolnir, he can bring them back to life the next day.
Okay.
So it's a little bit tricksy, something the Norse gods aren't.
Can I help myself to another? That's really good.
Yeah. So he does that, and the only condition is no one breaks the bones. Because it will hinder them being put back together.
Oh,
no. Now, Loki is there at the same time, and Loki being Loki, he convinces the farmer's children that the best bit is the marrow. And the reason that Thor doesn't want to share it is because it's the best bit. He doesn't want anyone else to have it. So, of course, they break the bones and drink the marrow.
Oh.
Next morning comes around and Thor puts the goats back together and one of them's got a lame leg. And so he knows what's happened. And I think it ends where he takes off one of the children as like a servant to help him on his travels in exchange for the fact that he's now travelling on foot because he doesn't have goats anymore.
So temptation got the better of them.
Yeah.
And they broke the leg for the bone marrow.
Yeah. Because of Loki, which is a theme in Norse mythology. Something goes wrong. Was it Loki? It's usually. But as I mentioned Loki, there is also a amusing tale. It's a little bit long, so we won't do the full version.
Okay.
But essentially, the gods have killed the giant Thrym, I think it was, and his daughter's obviously quite mad about this, and she turns up. I think her name's Skadi, and she turns up demanding, reparations for what they've done. And they offer a few different things, but one of them is that they'll make her laugh.
Okay.
And everybody has a go, and everybody fails.
Oh dear.
And it's looking bleak. So Loki's to sides that he's got a great idea. So he grabs a rope, ties one end to a goat, and the other two is manhood, shall we say. And
He ties the goat to his manhood.
Yes.
Oh, that was
and what
brave.
follows is one of the most eye-watering games of tug of war that anyone has ever witnessed.
And was he successful in making
He
her
was
laugh?
successful. She does laugh.
Oh my word!
Yeah.
She would have been falling off her stool with laughter, thinking, "This, why think of this crazy idea? This is painful."
So yeah, that's another example of goats. So they do come up a few times. So it's obviously clear even from that they're eating them. And obviously we have to be a bit careful when we're picking from stories. You know, there are other stories where they eat things like dragon hearts. So we can kind of pick up a few ideas about food from the stories.
Yeah.
But it's more about the humour of them, really.
Yeah.
There's a race. I don't know if it happens every year, but
I'm literally taking every little slither off this.
there is a race that happened, and I don't necessarily say it might be every year, where, in sort of memory of Loki's attempts, a bunch of men have a race where they tie logs and run, and they have to run sort of so far and back again to win this race. You can find footage
But
of
no goats featured.
no goats in that.
No, so they just...
Mm-hmm.
Why are they doing this to themselves?
I have no idea. It makes me wince just watching.
Oh, this is delicious. Really, yeah, just Moorish. You just could just eat this round the log fire late into the night.
Yeah, very nice. It's
Yeah.
a favourite of ours. Make them quite a lot.
Okay, I have promised I'd cook this from your cookbook 1. And I still haven't, but I really have to now. Now I've tasted it, it gives me more of a reason to do it.
It's quite a long process. I think that's what puts people off. Whereas,
So where do you store it in all that time?
usually it's just hanging in my kitchen.
Hanging from a...
Yeah, so I've got a couple of beams in the kitchen ceiling
Okay.
with a couple of hooks
Yeah.
over the fridge. So it's kind of tucked out of the way, but it's quite a cool kitchen. I mean, it's an old 1850s cottage.
Yeah.
So it's not a hot place, but they just hang up there until they're ready to go normally.
Very nice. Gosh, it's
Very
amazing
nice,
you don't come downstairs in the morning and find one missing, because they're very good.
I think because they're heavily salted, you wouldn't get a problem with rodents or anything as well, because they're literally... I should have brought one with me to show you, but they, almost look crystallised
Yeah, okay.
with a layer of salt.
Yeah.
So I do have the deer version.
Should I try it?
Feeling brave.
I'm always brave. Especially when it comes to eating. It's got into my stomach.
I have no idea whether these
Wow,
are
so
really
this
good.
is...
So this is a fallow deer,
Yeah.
which we butchered on a course back in beginning of October. And I just did the same process.
Very different tasting.
It's,
Very different. Is that the right taste? Is that the taste you're expecting?
I don't know what I was expecting.
No.
I don't think it's as pleasant as goat.
No.
The goat, like you say, is Moorish. This one I'm not so sure. Yeah, I think I'd stick with the goat.
Yeah, let's stick with the goat. There's the votes.
It's worth trying these things. You never know. And as I say, we discard that part of the animal a lot because there's not much meat on them. But I don't think it's worth the effort.
People often come to me and say, so what does goat taste like? And I'm like, oh, what does pig taste like? What does sheep taste like? You can't, they're all very different in their taste.
Well, that leads to another question I was going to ask you.
Okay.
What would you recommend as someone's first taste of goat meat? So which product should they go for?
Usually, I instantly direct them towards the burgers because everyone's familiar with a burger. They know a good burger, a bad burger. So our goat burgers are 100% goat meat and just very simple. And it's something they're familiar with, so it's like, oh, it doesn't feel too adventurous because I know what a burger is.
Yeah.
And they're so good, they're like, oh, okay, you converted me. And then people want to curry with goat. It's what is often talked about. To me, that's absolutely sacrificial, to be honest. I mean, why? It's got its own flavour. It doesn't need to be swamped in spice because you can't taste those flavours. So, I mean, our choice of meat at home is the rack, the cutlet.
Yeah.
So that's the top end of the rib.
Yeah, sure.
And we, rack of kid is sublime. We don't do anything to it. We just put a little bit of oil, maybe salt and pepper, maybe not even that, and cook it so it's pink in the middle. We call them goat lollipops, and literally the children go crazy for them. And it's a very subtle, tender meat.
That's probably the same meat as the loin, I guess, if you cut the loin off. Yeah.
So that's how I'd like people to try it, because then it's just, okay, I've got this. This is the taste of goat. And then, like any animal, depending how hard that working limb is how tender or tough it is. And depending on the age of the animal, depending on the sex of the animal, that differentiates the taste, as well as the length of hanging, the temperature it was hung, how it was cooked. So I always like to say that the farmer, the cheesemaker, even the slaughterman and the butcher all have a great influence on the taste and the texture. And we can engineer it to be goatier or not so goaty. And it's in our hands as to quite that taste and that texture.
Do you mention about the age of the animal? So generally, how old do you leave them before you send them for slaughter?
So it depends on a number of things, but generally they're 9 months to 18 months old. They've reached their full potential, their full weight without becoming fatty. We don't want a fat animal.
Actually younger than I thought. I don't know why I had it in my head that goats had to go on for a lot longer before you.
No. It all depends. It depends on the season and depends on the growth, when they were born, what they were eating. Depends on how quickly you grow, as we know that with children. So there isn't any definite line. Every animal is an individual.
Yeah.
And every individual grows differently.
So you have to decide based on each one when the time comes.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And as I've mentioned to you earlier, someone asked me as well about what you do with the males versus the females.
Okay.
Because in dairy farming, the males are killed at birth.
That is a misconception. They were. So in the UK, we're very fortunate in that now has stopped.
Right.
So all male animals, whether it's cows, sheep, goats, those males that are born into a dairy system are still given a life. And that's really the influence of the supermarket saying, it's the right thing, as we would all agree. You've got to give an animal a life. And yes, so the males are, because they don't have a function in the dairy industry, they don't have a function, they can't be bred, they don't breed, they can breed, and those very few, so the bucks, we call them in the goat world, so they are kept entire, we call them, so they will be able to father kids young in the future, but we're very, very selective with those. Those have got to be the best of the animals, and we don't. We have 250 goats here on the farm here now, and we only have 3 bucks. 3 working males. Otherwise, there is a lot of testosterone flying about, and it's really not pleasant. And it's very smelly. The males are quite full on. You don't want them fathering young from their sisters or on their mothers. Once testosterone comes, anything's game.
You're gonna have some control over them.
So yes, you need some control, and so we generally we're experimenting with it, to be honest, because a male will grow quicker with testosterone flowing.
Right.
If, as a farmer, you can manage that testosterone and keep them separate, and it means that you have to wean them earlier from their mothers, because you don't want them jumping on their mothers or jumping on their sisters. So there's this whole chicken and egg situation. So generally, as other species do, we banned the testicles very early, at like 2-3 days old, as recommended, that we must do, and they just kind of shrivel up and fall off. So it's very, this blood circulation goes, and that means that it stops that testosterone flowing, and it's far simpler system.
Shall we have some more food?
Yeah.
You've actually brought me some food today, which is a first for this one.
So I'm gonna introduce some bone marrow.
I know you're big on nose to tail because I've had heads from you before for the brains and tongues and.
That is a great video. You're going to have to do that again.
Next time you get some heads.
Oh, do you want to use your fork? Hold on a minute.
I've got my fancy fork.
Okay, so the bone marrow. So these are prime joints, prime bones. So that's your shoulders and your legs. Right. Okay, and they've been sawn in half, and then the bone marrow is in between. So you need to.
Just dig it out?
You just dig it out. Yeah.
So these have just been boiled, right?
So so I made a broth, which will be and
I suppose almost ashamed to say I've never tried this.
I can't believe. I mean,
so the question will be, will I like it?
Yeah, will you like it? Will you like it?
Usually I feed other people and that's what they think. Doesn't this
it's got a bit cold now.
Fork experiment?
Or just use a spoon.
Doesn't work well with a fork.
No, I've used a.
It's very creamy.
It's buttery, isn't it?
Well, the flavour really hits you. It takes a little while.
Yeah. So the collagen in there will keep you young forever. I don't know about that.
I mean, just show that one a little bit.
I mean, my dog, as I was cooking this broth, literally just sat there with these dairy eyes looking at me. She knew exactly what I was cooking up. She's hopeful of some of these later.
So what do you normally do with that? Just eat it as it is? Or
I would have had it hot. I would have had it hot.
Spread it on toast, maybe?
You could do. I think our ancestors definitely have. But it definitely, to give flavour and fullness to a stew, is to cook with the bones, they say. But actually, you want them cut here so that the bone marrow is exposed, and that just helps you give that richness.
So some of this will be in your stock.
Exactly.
And so the rest is just whatever's left.
Exactly. Yeah. So no, hot. It is more Moorish, but you don't actually need much of it.
It's an interesting flavour.
But interesting in that story you were just telling, and
they scoop out
the temptation they had. They needed the bone. They wanted the bone marrow. It was a delicacy.
Yeah, and it would be important at the time, nutrition and things.
Yeah,
they wouldn't let anything go to waste.
So you've got a bit of leg meat on here, actually.
There is a bit.
Of which,
that's the thing. I mean, we do it with chickens and things as well. Do you have your roast chicken and you boil up the bones afterwards? And the amount of meat that comes off, you think you've picked everything from it.
Yeah.
And then you end up making a soup or something out of it, and you think it's just for the stock, but there's so much meat still in there.
And that's helps in the richness of the broth as well.
The flavour of the leg meat, I guess, been boiled, but it's a lot milder than like the pinnacle.
Oh, definitely. Yeah,
It's quite a mild flavour.
It's
for someone that's first trying goat, maybe don't go for your pinnacle and go for
the leg meat, the slow roasted shoulder. I mean, I always say to people, if you really want to taste goat, forget the flavours, forget the cookery books. Cookery books sell flavours.
Yeah.
If they just said, pop it in the oven, then why would you buy the cookery book? But really, you just think of roast beef. You think about, leg of lamb. Don't do anything to it. Just enjoy it as it is. And that's how we like to eat it. Yeah. Do you want to try this broth?
My wife's a fan of. I've made some like fermented chilies.
Okay.
And as a quick lunch is a bit of stock and some fermented chili in there, just from the heat. And she does that quite often, just like instead of buying a cup of soup.
Yeah.
We've got a homemade cup of soup.
But the nutritional content to this,
Smells great.
Our foremothers used to have this just pot on the side of the oven, and the broth and it was the bone broth. You just kept adding to it. And they'd make the gravy from it. It would go to make the stews. It would go as a nighttime drink. But yeah, the nutritional content of that, I think, is underestimated.
Yeah, it's nice. Again, if you had it hot by a campfire, maybe would be all right, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought I got away with this one because we'd forgotten.
Yeah.
Laura's been cooking me some offal. I'm fine with the heart and the liver, but anyone that's watched the previous episode knows I'm not a fan of kidneys. And so you've deliberately...
So I've cooked these as they are in actually a little bit of beef dripping and roasted them in the oven. Overcooked and maybe cooked a little bit too long. I would actually have had them all pink in the middle.
Yeah. I mean, I was eating the heart just, a week or so ago. I'm fine with the heart. And I've had goat heart before. I find it's milder than lamb's heart. I think out of all the hearts I've eaten, I think it's more pleasant.
Okay.
Liver, not tried the goat's liver before, but I don't like the liver.
Man up.
And then it's the kidney. So I'm going to have to go for the kidney first.
Man up, saxophone. You can do this.
You're not going to...
I'm going to have a whole one.
You have a whole one. I'm going for this little measly bit. As I said, it's the smell, so I'm going to just not smell it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're straight in, and we'll go for...
But see, that is, to me...
kind of tastes livery, but it's got a...
It's tender, isn't it?
It's like a bitter edge to it, though. Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
There is a taste afterwards.
Mm.
That's the bit that you don't like.
But as I say, it's not the smell. When I'm cooking them, the smell puts me off enough that I then won't eat it. But I haven't had to smell that. So flavour-wise, it's okay.
Okay. Can't have everything.
Yeah. It's one of those, don't think about it too much. The flavour with tongues and things and brains, it's just like, the flavours are fine. It's that, and it's obviously a British thing.
I'm not sure I can do tongues and brains.
No?
No.
Right, round 2. Next time we get goat heads, we'll cook them up.
Oh no.
And we'll do another video.
Oh no. Can I have some mead at the same time?
I'll bring some. Alright, so we've got some liver, which is more my...
Right, I'm going to leave that for later.
Because we are getting pushed for time, so we best crack on.
But I think all of this is essential as a Saxon forager. You ate everything, and because it was a waste, you don't waste things.
No, they wouldn't have wasted anything. I mean, even my knife here has got a bone handle.
Yeah.
They used the bones to make instruments, flutes, sewing needles.
Yeah.
They used tendons to make thread.
Yeah.
I think before Vikings, more they would have used them for making things like arrowheads, fishing hooks, that kind of thing. So in history, it was important to use everything. I know even just up the road with West Kennet, they found pig toe bones with holes in them.
Yeah.
That I think Wiltshire Museum say they're beads.
Okay.
My understanding is that there's an old instrument with a couple of bits of string attached, and it kind of makes a noise.
Oh, wow.
And I think it's that, but it is labelled in Wiltshire Museum as a bead.
Yeah.
But you can see even that's pre-history. They were still, using everything possible, which is important, really. Yeah, liver's nicer than kidney.
Okay. I'd eat the kidneys over the liver.
Yeah?
Yeah. Everyone's got a different taste. Right, have a little bit of heart.
I think the liver needs a bit of bacon.
Yeah.
Maybe that with a bit of vinegar.
You see, I think heart's my favourite. So it's a muscle. And
Let's just...
I
need to get rid of the liver first. So I won't get the full flavour.
It has a taste. But on I once had it on pink, again, little pink, on a bed of salad with a beautiful vinaigrette. Oh, it was sublime.
It's a lot milder in flavour than the liver or the kidney, isn't it? It's yeah.
Yeah, it hasn't got
none of that awfully taste at all.
No, far. It's liver and kidneys are on a totally different scale. Heart is nearer to the meat. And
they're cheap cuts, aren't they? I mean, if people want to...
I mean, the butchers throw them away. Yeah, there we are.
Yeah. That's the problem we have with heads as well. You can't get me the heads frequently. But they're probably discarded.
Wow, that's due to EU legislation. That's, unfortunately.
I know there are reasons behind it, but it's just a shame. It
is. Because so many other...
One boiling in a pot.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I've got a few people out there that I think I'd like to... I'm going to name someone now. It's Matthew Martin, when you're watching this. Next time I get goat heads, I'm coming for you. Yeah, we've sort of running out of time because we've got so many things to talk about, and you've brought out all this lovely food as well. We didn't even get to the cheese, so we should quickly try this cheese. So what cheese is this one?
So this is just a very basic soft cheese. It is Wookie whole. So a dairy herd of goats, a Wookie whole.
That's quite kind of zesty.
But the cheesemaker has the power to develop the cheese accordingly as to what cheese they're making. So, I mean, this is so mild. Would you know that was goat?
I don't think you would.
No. I mean, I always say to people they're like, oh, goat's cheese. And I'm like, okay, I bet you've eaten French goat's cheese. And as we know, the French love a smelly cheese. And, well, we know the British palate doesn't like as smelly cheese. And so a lot of our cheeses, you could serve them up and people would not know they were goat.
Kind of reminds me of you're topping on a cheesecake. It's that light. It's just, if there was a bit of sugar in there, a bit of sweetness, you'd think that was and in fact, there's an idea for that cheese.
Yeah.
Into a cheesecake.
You could make it into a dessert.
Right. So to wrap up, as I say, I think we're going to have to do another one at some point because we've barely scratched the surface on goats, and it's
a big subject.
I know, I've learned quite a lot today, so it's good. So I've got a few questions that I've been asking everybody.
Go ahead.
So do you think you could survive on a Viking age diet?
Yeah, I'd love to actually.
Yeah?
Definitely. Yeah, and anything you think I wouldn't like? I mean, I love the foraging aspect anyway. The fact that they actually ate, I believe, that many more different food than we do today.
There's
with
quite
all
a
their
variety in their diet, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it would have been more seasonal than what we would
Yeah.
do now.
But the nutritional content of things, if they're eaten seasonally, is so much greater. That would probably be quite a lot healthier for it.
I think for me the difficult bit would be that hunger gap where you get the spring into summer.
But then you'd have the pink one.
Potentially,
Yeah.
if you stored up well from the summer before, you'd have your produce there.
Yeah. No, the hunger gap would be the toughest bit.
So to follow on from that, is there any food that you'd miss from today if you're on a Viking diet?
Oh, yeah, I've just got this weakness for sugar. How would you? But then you'd really savour things in the summer. The sweetness of berries, the sweetness of you cherish them all. I think we all generally have a bit of a sugar addiction.
Yeah.
So I'm sure I could survive without so much.
I think we could all survive with that as much, but would you like to? I mean, they would have had honey, malt extract, and they just had fruits and things.
I love malt extract, yeah.
Not to be confused with yeast extract.
Right.
I've confused people before with that, where they've gone, wait, Marmite?
No. Well, I like Marmite too, no. But you can still, I think you can still buy malt extract.
You can?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's medicinal. My mother even says to me now, my mother occasionally delivers me a jar, and after a cold, you need malt extract. I'm like, oh, yes, I forgot about that.
And use it with malt loaf as well.
Malt loaf. Yeah. Oh, heavenly.
Yeah.
So, I think I'll be all right.
Awesome. So where can people find you online? If people want to come down to the shop, obviously they can.
Yeah.
But you've got your website. I think you'd ship.
So we've got an online shop. So our website is thegourmetgoatfarmer.co.uk. We have our online shop there, so we can deliver nationwide. So it doesn't matter where you are, there's an array of all our different produce, from the dairy to the different fibres to the meat, different cuts, and we can ship it across the country to wherever you are. And then you can come to us and see us for ourselves.
Got the lovely shop we're sat in now as well.
Yeah, come for a goat milk latte.
Yeah.
It's, as I said, it's praise to the goat. And you can have a goat burger or a goat halloumi burger. Or if you don't want to do the whole goat thing and you just want to pet a goat or feed a goat, you just want to give them some goat nuts, you can do that here as well. And I do a number of talks myself. So if you want to know more about goat farming, goat produce, we've got a number of different kind of breakfasts, if you like, a Friday breakfast with me.
Yeah.
To learn a bit more.
Sounds great. And I think you've got a Facebook page and an Instagram.
Oh, yeah. Facebook,
cover those.
Instagram, absolutely.
It's just at Gourmet Goat Farmer or something?
The Gourmet Goat Farmer.
Yeah. I'll pop a couple of links underneath anyway for anyone to find it. So thanks for coming on.
No,
thanks
pleasure.
for bringing me some interesting food. And we'll do another one soon.
Good.
If you enjoyed the show and want to hear more, remember to like and subscribe and give the show a rating. You can also help keep the show going by becoming a Patreon, where you'll get early access to all episodes. Or check out my range of merch on my store. Links are in the episode description. Thanks for watching.